wonder that we are so sick and that we don't really understand how to feed ourselves, given the information that we're given about what we're putting into our bodies? All right, so what we're going to do right now, everybody, we're going to throw that out. Come on. It's a participation class. All right. So I'm going to have you grab the new simple food pyramid. All right, I have 2 rules with food. 1, it's not complicated. 2, play with your food. We're going to talk about all of that in the next 6 weeks. So there are really only 3 food groups, and I have added a 4th for everyone here because I personally believe that no one can live without chocolate. So there are fats, there are proteins, and there are carbohydrates. Important when understanding how food rebalances the body. All right, we're looking at rather than normal, we want to look at functional. All right, functional means that the body has everything that it needs to maintain daily processes of living while also cleansing, repairing, and rebuilding as needed. And these are all things that the body does every day all on its own. Like, we are this awesome super machine that is self-regulating. We were created with everything that we needed to maintain health, provided we provide the right environment and the right tools. All right, so rather than is it normal, I want to know, is it functional? And is it healthy? The difference between, what's the difference between normal and healthy?
Normal can be unhealthy.
Normal can be unhealthy. Why?
Too much of it? Convenience? I'm not sure where you're going.
So, okay, let's do an example of normal. So, most people move their bowels once every couple of days. Okay? It is considered normal to have a bowel movement only a couple of times a week. However, healthy is 3 times a day. All right, so normal is something that is accepted generally because that's how the environment is. Not because it's actually the best environment for the body to create health and maintain vitality and balance. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're striving for always, is to maintain or restore balance and vitality, and to ensure that what we're getting is functional and healthy. And if it's healthy, then it will support functionality. All right. Essentially, it leads to chronic diseases, which is the case with any deficiency. Anytime there's a nutritional deficiency, the body will function as long as it possibly can, given the environment and the tools that it has. It's incredibly adaptive. But at some point, we reach critical mass where the need to perform a function can't be done because we don't have the tools and the equipment to do it. All right, that all comes back to nutrition. That is, nutrition is the absolute baseline for maintaining, restoring, and rebuilding balance, health, and vitality in humans. Actually, anything living. You can apply this to your pets too. Thinking of disease as a thing. All right, y'all understand where a disease name comes from? No? Okay. A disease is simply a group of symptoms that have been put together and given a name so that they can be placed on a form with a specific code behind them so that the doctor can justify the treatment that he gave to the insurance company so he can get paid. The disease name, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. All right? It's not a disease. It is dis-ease. It is a state of unrest in the body or imbalance.
Long and healthy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just potatoes. You live a long period of time, a healthy period of time, eating just junk.
I can't really answer that because both references are subjective. Long is subjective. All right, and healthy is subjective to the point that what one person considers to be healthy and normal for them, and again, we're working with this vocabulary that we have in our society, is going to be different from what someone else does. So is it possible to survive on potatoes? Absolutely. I mean, so far, so good. And again, the answer to that always, to most nutrition questions, makes me sound like a used car salesman because it depends. All right? It's not really, we have to get away from this good and bad and right or wrong and ask the question, is it appropriate? Is it appropriate for that person, and is it appropriate for that person now? Because the answer to that changes. It changes from person to person, and it changes from moment to moment for each person. You know, it could be perfectly okay for me to go out on a weekend and have 3 vodka tonics and scarf down a bucket of wings.
Let's go.
And cheese sticks.
Round 1, let's go.
Right?
What are you doing?
And that could be perfectly okay for me because the rest of the time everything is balanced and my body can handle that. But for someone else, going and doing that binge could have severe side effects. And so it's always about what's appropriate for the person and the timing. Okay? And you guys need to remember that as you're planning your meals because your nutritional needs change. All right? Calories, counting calories, taking points, all of that stuff. It makes all of this entirely too complicated. We don't need to do that. We have natural calorie counters. It's called satiation. If you feel full, not overly full or bloated, but satisfied, you've had enough calories for that time. And when you have used up those calories and require more, another sensation kicks in. That would be your hunger reflex. That's your body telling you, listen, we need more fuel. Come on. All right, and the key is to feed the body the right foods in the right combinations and the right proportions that are most appropriate for you given your needs. All right, I'm giving you guys the basics in here to kind of get you started, and then fine-tuning those things sometimes requires a coach. And some people can do it on their own. All they need are the basics to kind of get them started, and they just play with their food, and it's all good. Other people need a little more hand-holding and a little more direction to say, okay, look, here's where you're at right now, and this is where we want to get you, so here are the steps that we need to begin to take. And again, that's an evolving thing. It's not, okay, do this and you're all good and you do this for the rest of your life and you're fine, because once you get to a point where the imbalances that were there are corrected, if you continue doing those things that were helping to feed the body and get deficiencies corrected, you can create an imbalance in the other direction that causes a whole nother set of problems. So it's always a balancing act. Yes, Kim?
Are your plates going to look a lot bigger with a lot more food on it than before?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's going to look a lot bigger with a lot more food on it than before.
Yes. 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 All right. So how many of you have been told by an MD that you need to lose weight? All right. And I say this in all seriousness. We hold on to excess weight for two reasons. We are deficient and we're toxic. And it's always a combination of the two, because it creates a vicious cycle. All right, we become deficient, so we don't have the tools to effectively cleanse the body out, so we retain toxins, and the body will wrap a toxin up in a fat molecule and store it away where it can't do much harm, but it's still sitting there taking up space and bogging down the system. And now we've got toxins built up, so it's difficult to absorb because this energy is going into defense. And we can't absorb, so we don't have the tools that we need to cleanse out the toxins. So the toxins build up, and we don't absorb properly to get what we need to cleanse out because we're defending, and we don't have the energy to do this. And then now we're deficient more, and then the toxins build up, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going, and until we take away the cause of the toxicity, we stop putting stuff into our body that's causing immune responses, that's not serving our highest good, that's not appropriate for us at this particular moment. And we start feeding the body what it needs. Here's the cool thing, all right? Very rarely do I need to put somebody on a restrictive diet, okay? And I'm going to qualify that by saying I do take away foods that are inappropriate for that person at that time, but it's not a restrictive diet, okay? And by that, I mean we're not restricting calories. I'm not telling you that you can't eat. I am usually telling people the exact opposite. You need to eat more. You need to eat more of the right things. All right, we need to feed the body to correct the deficiencies and create that balance that triggers the natural response in the body of cleansing, repair, and regeneration. The body does that all on its own, all day, every day. All right, all of our cells have a life cycle. So that means every day cells are dying off and the body is replacing them. It's rebuilding them. It's regenerating them. Every day cells get damaged. And the body goes in and it clears out the damaged material, and it brings in the tools and the enzymes and the construction crew, and they clear out the dead necrotic parts of the cells and the tissues, and they come back in and they rebuild it. And as long as the body has the right tools in the right proportions, it will rebuild healthy tissue every single time. The struggle comes when the body is so overwhelmed with trying to defend and cleanse that it doesn't have enough resources left to rebuild. I don't have to put people on detox programs because the body knows how to do that all by itself. You don't need a product to do that. You just need to feed your body right. I don't need to restrict your calorie intake because your calorie intake is going to change from day to day. You have more energy expenditures from the one day to the next, or less from one day to the next, or even from in the morning to in the afternoon. And all of that varies based on physical activity, mental activity, and emotional activity. I'm going to tell you guys, mental and emotional activity requires far more energetic resources than physical activity does.
How about stress? Does it not affect
What kind of an activity is that?
stress?
It's emotional and mental.
Right.
Exactly.
My cortisol making machine.
Yeah. Need some red wine.
Give me some adrenal glands.
Let's some of your favorite store-bought drinks.
Water. Iced tea.
Okay?
Coconut water. Aloe water.
Come on, somebody other than the health nuts.
Soda water.
Soda water. Okay, we'll do Perrier.
Carbonated soda water. Perrier.
Carbonated waters. Okay.
What do you want to say? Pepsi and Mountain Dew.
Sure. But I'll go with you know what? We'll just go with carbonated drinks.
Just straight corn syrup.
Right. Right. Just bypass the vodka and go right for the Caro syrup.
Little
That's right.
hugs and vodka.
Yeah, little hugs. I love you, Kim. All right, carbonated drinks. They're the thing. Like everything's carbonated, right? Because the little fizzies tickle your nose and they're fun. All right, so I'm going to tell you what happens when you drink a carbonated drink. All right. In that drink, you have that molecule. All right? There is an oxygen molecule there. When we carbonate something, we're actually adding a carbon molecule to it. All right? So in the blood, there's actually a couple of things that happen when we do this. But in the blood, that carbon molecule gets into a fist fight with the oxygen molecule and wins. And it takes up the space for the oxygen molecule and makes us oxygen deficient on a cellular level. It makes it difficult for us to absorb because we don't have the tools that we need to transport the nutrients into the cells and get the waste out of them.
So is there any carbonated drink that has a carbon killer in it?
Well, no, because the whole process of carbonating is adding the carbon molecule to the drink. Kind of like hydrogenated butter. They're adding extra hydrogen into that and taking that natural butter and turning it into a petroleum product. Okay, the other thing that happens here, and this is why I want to take back carbohydrates, all right, guys, because you need to understand this. All right, just because it's liquid does not mean that it hydrates you.
Carbon dehydration.
Okay, hydrogen, hydrate, water, hydrates, all right? Carbon and a hydrate and a hydrogen molecule, carbohydrate. So this hydrates you, that is food. And that's exactly how your body reads it when we take it in. If there's a carbon molecule present, the body goes, oh, that's complicated. It's food. That's how we're going to treat it. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. All right. We all have a basic understanding of why vitamins and minerals and fatty acids and all that are important, right? I don't have to get into that too much with you guys. All right, good, because I want to talk about the other two nutrients that get overlooked and really completely bypassed when we talk about nutrients for the body, and that's water and oxygen. And I'm going to focus mostly on water because if you notice, there's oxygen in that water molecule. The majority of the cellular oxygen that we get comes from our hydration. Yes, we're oxygenating as we breathe, but a very large part of what gets taken in on a cellular level is coming from hydration. If we are dehydrated, not only are we low on water, which is needed for nerve conductivity, for lubricating the joints, for transporting nutrients. It's also important for helping us respirate, breathe on a cellular level. Anybody tell me what the first sign of dehydration is? What's the first thing to go when you're dehydrated?
Your pee is yellow.
That's actually not the first sign. That comes later.
Really late.
Yeah, that's really late.
That's pretty good, Josh.
Come on, ladies. Brain higher brain function. The very first thing to go is higher brain function. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you get the 2 o'clock does. Why did I walk in the kitchen? All right. So higher brain function goes. Why? Because that water that you do have in your body is being shuffled off to vital organs that are necessary to maintain life. Okay? It doesn't matter that you can't do 2 + 2 and can't figure out where you left your keys in your right hand, or that you're looking for your sunglasses on your head. That doesn't matter. That's not necessary for survival. All right? Those resources are being pulled into wherever the body needs them for sheer survival. All right? So, higher brain function is not one of those.
Thank goodness for that lower brain function.
You know, we all gotta have our minimum level of.
Brainstem.
All right. The other thing that happens, kind of simultaneously, is fatigue. Okay. The reason we get fatigued is the same reason that we lose higher brain function. The body is conserving energy for vital functions. Only what's needed for survival is going to get that energy. Everything else goes by the wayside. Yes?
Does it depend on the type of water you drink too? I mean, you can get some water that has, it's like city water.
Right. So again, the answer to that depends, and I am going to go into specifically what are the best types of hydration. Okay, good. Great question. So with all of this, then, how do we know how much water we need? I'm actually getting a little bit ahead, but that's okay.
Pee clear.
If your urine is dark and smelly, you're way past dehydration. You're chronically dehydrated. That's not necessarily true. Here's the thing, guys. Your pee is never clear. All right? We go in a toilet full of water, so when you deposit into that extra water, it gets diluted. And if it is relatively straw colored, it's going to look clear in the toilet. It's never actually clear. All right, so there is a formula to determine how much water you need on a daily basis. And this is a bare minimum number. All right? You guys didn't know you were going to have to do math tonight, did you? Your body weight divided in half. That is how many ounces you need bare minimum. So a 100-pound person would need 50 ounces bare minimum every day to remain hydrated. That's, I see you shaking your head over here. That's not that much. That's, he's like, oh, okay. All right, we're gonna break this down for you. Do you see this? That's 20 ounces. Okay?
You need a case.
Cakes.
No. You better get about a 5-gallon worth.
All right, that's okay. So let me ask. So all right, so a 200-pound person needs 100 ounces. That's 5 bottles. Okay, and that's all right. That's all right. That's bare minimum. All right, I'm really going to shock you now. How many of you are going, I'm never going to be out of the bathroom?
What's the maximum?
The maximum?
You always have that one that's like, you're gonna hydrate yourself again.
Well, okay, that is actually really hard to do.
I know, that's
It's really hard to do because we have natural satiation mechanisms, and as long as we're not dumb enough to override those, and I understand that there is a percentage of the population that frequents YouTube that will do that, but in general, that's really hard to do. I mean, to drown yourself by drinking water, you literally have to sit and drink gallons of water at one time to waterlog the body. If you're doing it over the course of the day, it's really hard to do that. And there will also come a point where you go, I'm not thirsty. All right, so what counts towards hydration? Because that's a big question. That's what people want to know. All right, or that they don't really understand. I can tell you how many people come into my office and they're like, well, you know, I drink water in the morning, and then I usually have some at night, and then have like 4 cups of coffee and maybe a tea. And then and then we go to Starbucks and I get the latte thingy. All right, so what counts towards your hydration? What's actually going to hydrate the body? Water.
Fruits and vegetables.
Herbal tea.
Tea.
Believe it or not, most of the water in our food goes into digestion, and some of it is reabsorbed through the colon to help hydrate the body, but the majority of it from our food is used for transport and not necessarily for full hydration. We don't get enough from our food, and we do not produce enough through our natural metabolism to maintain our hydration needs, which is why we need to drink water. So what water is best? That was your question, right? What water is best? Okay, there are some waters that don't really do anything for you. They are appropriate for certain things, but for hydration, for nutrition, you want living water. You want water that still is in its most natural state and has all of the nutrients in it. So we're looking for spring water or artesian water. Okay, and artesian water is spring water that's just come from an underground spring in, like, under a volcano. All right, so herbal teas. I'm talking true herbal teas, black tea, white tea, green tea. They're all the same tea. They all contain caffeine, and they strip the body of hydration along with most of those receptor vitamins we were talking about earlier. All right, so they do not count. Those do not count towards your hydration. They're actually the opposite. Herbal teas, however, come from herbs that contain no caffeine, and we are rather than grinding them up and making them into some sort of food thing, we are allowing the water to permeate the cell membranes of the plant and extract out the nutrients via osmosis. That has to be done by steeping. That doesn't happen through percolation where, like, you put it in your Keurig and you just let the water run through. You have to steep it. Because we are allowing that nutrients to come in via osmosis, none of the carbon from the plant material gets into that water unless you're consuming the herb itself. And the water maintains its integrity. It has that same chemical structure. So when we consume it, when it hits the tongue, which, by the way, guys, isn't really for taste, that's just a fun byproduct that God said, well, here you go. Enjoy that. It actually is a chemical reader. It identifies the chemical structure of everything that we eat and tells the body which enzymes and digestive chemicals need to be produced and released. All right, so because we're maintaining this structure, the body's still going to treat it as hydration. And bonus, you get the extra nutrients from the herbal constituents that are released into the water via osmosis. All right, similarly, infused water, and herbal teas basically are an infusion. For those of you who have taken my herbal classes know that. Infused water. And this was like all the rage a while back. You could get all kinds of little bottles, and they're still out there that have the little baskets for you to drop fruit or vegetables in. All right, here's the key. Squeezing the vegetables or muddling them up in the water creates just enough heat to produce a chemical bond between the carbon molecules in that food and the water and changes the structure of it. So instead, we're going to just slice up the fruit or the vegetable and drop it in the water and allow it to sit and infuse. You get the flavor, you get the nutrients in there, but you're not changing the chemical structure of the water, so the body still treats it as hydration. These are the only 3 things that will hydrate you. There are, I do sometimes recommend coconut water for people who have electrolyte imbalances. Coconut water will not necessarily hydrate you, but it does help to rebalance electrolytes, which help you to uptake oxygen and other nutrients. Okay, your electrolytes are your sodium, your potassium, your chlorine, your magnesium. All right, those 2 need to be in balance. We need to have the saline solution of your body fluids needs to be in the proper balance in order for everything to function well. There's a couple of other things that everybody received. Number 1, you received this big list of clean foods, all right? And it says type AB, type A, type B. These are food lists that are, the foods on these lists are most appropriate for you if you have that blood type, okay? And this is just a surface blood type. When I do this in the office, I get a little bit more in depth because there's genetics that come into play here when we're talking about blood types and metabolism. There's an A blood type, a B blood type, and an O blood type. A and B are equally dominant. If you get one A gene from mom and a B gene from dad, you're going to be an AB blood type. Okay? Now, if you are an A or a B blood type, you could have a recessive O gene. In order to be an O blood type, you got to get 2, one from mom, one from dad. Kind of like having blue eyes. All right? If you're an A or B blood type, you can still have that recessive O gene that's there and is dominating your metabolic process. All right? Which means that I can have an A blood type, and A blood types typically do really well on vegan diets. If you guys look at the list for A blood types, it's really small and it's all plants. All right? However, that person comes into me and I test them as a protein metabolic type. That tells me right there that there is an O gene present that is dominating their metabolic type, and that O blood type list is going to be most appropriate for them.